Hello and a very warm welcome to Matchpoint, where we bring you sports stories and features from a purely African perspective. I'm Mahia Mutwa. Let's now take a look at the highlights for today's show. Tonight on Matchpoint, we ask, is it an elite, neglected or less interesting sport? We focus on the state of swimming in Africa. Ethiopia's Mukhtar Edris gets his first Diamond League win in the men's 5,000 meters.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, punch it!
And we take the plunge. It's free fall at the Victoria Falls. Welcome to Matchpoint. We begin with swimming. Cameron van der Burg believes he can retain his swimming 100-meter Olympic crown at Rio 2016. Van der Burg could only manage silver at the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow last month, but in an exclusive interview with CCTV News, the South African feels that disappointment has given him a new focus.
Enjoying some downtime after the rigours of competition. Although Cameron van der Burg struck gold at the Commonwealth Games, the Olympic 100-metre breaststroke champion found the going tough in Scotland. There, he disappointingly missed out on 100-metre breaststroke gold, but then hit back to win the 50-metre title. Glasgow, though, meant a lot more to the South African than that.
I think reunited the passion that I associate with the sport within myself. I think over the years, you can sort of become complacent every now and then, and after doing it for about 8 years, it's a lonely sport sometimes, being an individual sport, that you forget sometimes, I think, why you do it. And it was just so nice for me to have a realization of, again, why do I do the sport, how much I do love it.
Van der Burg walked away with 3 Commonwealth Games medals in total, but he admits he sunk to a mental low after that defeat in the 100 metres.
You think a lot. I think, the mind is always, shall we say, a powerful thing, and also can be very bad thing sometimes. You have a lot of negative thoughts and why and what went wrong and so on. But you have to pick yourself up, and I think the mental victory that I overcame all of that, like I say, was a lot more valuable than any medal that I could have won.
After claiming breaststroke gold at the London Olympics, Van der Burg became the man to beat. And he knows the target on his back is only going to get bigger in the future.
I think means a lot, especially when the kids come up and they say to Bruce, your competitor, to say, hey man, you're my idol. I've been watching your races, and it gives me a lot of motivation in the sense that I know how hungry I was back then when I was a young kid to try and beat those guys. So now I know exactly what they're going through and what they're thinking of, and I know that I got to be one step ahead of them every time.
It's clear that Glasgow has helped Cameron van der Burg rediscover his love for swimming and competing. And although he has a number of other targets he wants to achieve over the next 18 months or so, his focus is on defending his Olympic crown at Rio 2016.
When you win Olympic Games once, it's quite a feat, obviously, but I think to be able to defend the title, you're the champion for 8 years running, that's quite a thing, and even if you do retire after that, it's nice to know that, as I say, that you're the champion for the next 4 years. And when you look at the legends of the sport, or shall we say of my discipline, you always think back to guys that have won it 2 consecutive times, and I'd like to be one of those guys.
The record books will show that Cameron van der Burg won a gold medal in Glasgow. But longer term, perhaps it was the silver that will prove to be the more important. Dan Williams, CCTV, Johannesburg.
Well, we stay with South African swimmers. This week, one of swimming's biggest stars appeared at the Youth Olympics in Nanjing. Chad le Clos captured the world's attention in 2010 when he competed at the inaugural Youth Games in Singapore, winning a total of 5 medals. 2 years later, he famously beat Michael Phelps to win the gold medal in the 200 meters butterfly at the London Olympic Games. The 21-year-old was in Nanjing as an ambassador for the Games and spoke to CCTV about what the Youth Olympic Games has meant to his career.
It's a huge honour to be a young ambassador. My family and I, we're a very proud family. My father especially. For me to be here, we were at Amiga last night and we saw my picture up in the stores in China and huge posters all over of the YOG in the village here. So for me, it's a dream come true to be here and to be living the dream, really. I think the biggest thing I learned from the Singapore Youth Olympics was, everything that came outside of the pool. You know, I had to report to the race like 30 minutes, 20 minutes before. I had to go through media zones, do interviews, you know, do drug testings. I had a press conference afterwards, the medals, and, you know, just doing all of that, you know, not knowing what it was about. You know, I just figured, okay, you have the Youth Olympic Games, you're going to rock up to the pool, you're going to swim your final, get your medal, and, you know, it's a whole process. And I think it's crazy how much, you know, I've changed as an athlete and how much I've learned over the last 4 years. It feels amazing to inspire young athletes. I think for me, I still feel like I am, in a way, one of those athletes. You know, I look up to a lot of people. You know, I know what it feels like to look up to, you know, let's just say Michael Phelps, for example. And, you know, 8 years after I started like idolizing him, you know, we became friends and competed against each other. So, you know, for me, that's my way I'm going to try and come across to some of these athletes. You know, I don't want to, they can look at me as inspiration, but also, you know, they mustn't look at too much in awe, if that makes sense. You have to, you know, you have to have respect for your competitors. I think that's very important. But, you know, also one day you have to try and maybe, you know, beat them, you know. So that's my message, hopefully I can convey to them.
All right, now one young Egyptian swimmer has been preparing hard to compete in the 2016 Paralympic Games in Brazil. Islam Abouali has stood against all obstacles to reach this dream ever since 2002 when Egypt scrapped its national Paralympic swimming team. 12 years on, Islam convinced the government to restart the program, and since then, he's been training with them every day before going to work. Adel El Mahrouki has more.
Like the birds, he wakes up at dawn. With the first light, his car arrives at the shooting club, and without assistance, he jumps off his passenger seat onto his wheelchair, rushing to the swimming pool, following his dreams of becoming a world champion. This is Islam Abouali. Islam never had a physical disability up until 3 years ago. After a hiking trip in Sinai, he had a car accident. After 9 months of rehabilitation, they told him he'll never walk again.
For almost 2 months, after they telling me that I'll never walk again, I got depressed and I lost interest in the life at all. But after a while, I decided to be independent, and while we were traveling, me with my friends, we went for Sahel, North Coast. One of my friends was kidding and told me that I'll push you into the water, I'll let you fall and drown. Then I decided to learn how to swim.
For the next 2 years to that incident, Islam won 2 national golden medals, becoming Egypt's champion. And now he's getting ready to represent Egypt in the 2016 Paralympics in Brazil. But many challenges lie ahead.
Unfortunately, the resources are very limited here, and they are preferring to support the regular athletes here in Egypt. But I'm lucky enough because I met Mr. Khaled Abdelaziz, the Minister of Youth and Sports, and he was very cooperative and helpful. He established a national swimming team for the differently able.
The last time Egypt had an active national team was in 2002, and thanks to Islam, it's now back and have 9 players. Abouali, though, is not only focusing on swimming. He is also a board member in the Hassan Foundation for Spinal Cord Injuries, trying to help people with similar condition to fight the restrictions society imposes, including the international agreed-upon phrase, person with disability. He doesn't like it.
No, we are fighting to change this word. We are not disabled, we are differently abled. So it's also one of our objectives, because we are capable enough. Just give us the chance and we will boom. We have dreams. We are people like you. We are not second class.
To prove his point, we decided to have a race. The rule was that I don't get to use my legs just like him. Of course, he won.
It's not as easy as it looks. You might have full control over your entire body, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you are a winner. Adel Mahrouki, CCTV, Cairo.
Adele reporting from Cairo. They're keeping at least head above water. Let's now talk organization. Africa will obviously be looking to make a big splash at the 2016 Olympic Games after what has been described as a successful showing at this year's Commonwealth Games. Leon Senyange spoke to the Africa Swimming Confederation Vice President Donald Rukare about the progress the continent is making in the pool and what the future holds for swimming in Africa.
You were in the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. How basically was it for the African teams?
No, Glasgow brought together about 65 or so territories of the Commonwealth, and we had swimming as one of the 11 sports featured at the Games. And swimming went well for Africa. We had a number of African teams participating, but of course from the African perspective it was dominated primarily by South Africa. That was the main, and then we had a few people from Zambia.
Talent identification must be a key thing for the African Federation as well.
It is, because we see what we're trying to do now is put in place programs with FINA which will help us identify the talent, have them trained. So right now we have a number of scholarships, for example, which will be helping us participate in the African Games, in the World Championships in Kazan. So the idea is to do all this, but talent identification happens at different levels: country level, region, and then at the international level. And we're also trying to use some countries like South Africa, Egypt, to be like the high performance training centers, because we believe it's easier for Africans to train within Africa. So south to south cooperation. So Ugandans, Kenyans, Zambia can go to the high performance centers in South Africa, train from there, and then come back, rather than going to Europe, which is a bit far and quite expensive. So we're trying to look at all those different models, but ultimately we need to up the game.
Your expectations for Africa from the Youth Games in Beijing, China?
What we're hoping to see in Africa from the swimming perspective is more, hopefully, medals, more personal bests, more national records, and more African records. And then from there, some of those people will then take part in the Youth Commonwealth Games next year in Samoa. And hopefully some of those youth that we're grooming will be into development programs. Ultimately, what we're looking at is the World Championships in Kazan, which will be in July of next year. This year we have the short course in Qatar, which will be also taking part. So we hope that will be like a pathway. But ultimately what we're looking at is if they can get to the Olympics in 2016, then we'll probably see a lot of the homegrown talent. South Africa did in a way, in the past, Leo, what was happening was that a lot of the Africans who were winning medals, we did an analysis as Kana, 90% of them were swimming either in America, Australia, or out of Africa. There were very few of them swimming in Africa. But now South Africa, we have a number of the Chad Leclos who are swimming in Africa and winning gold medals and world records. So I think there's potential for us to do better if we can get the right recipe in terms of the facilities, support, training, capacity. So once all those things come together, South Africa, Egypt has shown us that we can actually do it.
Well, looking forward, your projections over the next 5 or 10 years about African swimming?
Now, African swimming, we believe over the next 5 to 10 years is going to only get better. We're already seeing that. You can see that when we go to the Olympics, we go to the Commonwealth Games, we are competitive. The question now is how do we make that to scale? How can we make that beyond the South Africas, the Kenyas and Egypts of this world and Tunisia? And I think what we need to do as Kana, as we're trying to do, is help our affiliates to have these programs in place, have a strategy, have a plan, have a vision of where you want to take swimming. And that plan is supported by both we, Kana, FINA and others. Then in 5 to 10 years, we'll definitely see the sport of swimming getting better. And what we really like to see is that in future we have close to maybe 40–50% of the medals coming from Africa. Because we're seeing this in athletics. Athletics has 80% of the medals worldwide. They come from Africa and from about only 3 countries. So it's definitely possible. If we have that model, we can use the athletics model and use it for swimming.
All right, time for a break now, but don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more sporting action, including Ethiopia's Mukhtar Idris gets his first Diamond League win in the men's 5,000 meters. And Uganda Rugby Union partners with South Africa to revive the sport's lost glory. Welcome back. Well, there was a new world-leading time set on the track on a chilly Stockholm evening on Thursday as Ethiopia's Mukhtar Idris produced the fastest time of 2014 in the men's 5,000 meters. Before the rain picked up over the Olympic Stadium, Idris put on a phenomenal display to finish in 12 minutes 54.9 0.83 seconds. Despite the less than ideal weather conditions, the small Ethiopian contingent of fans cheered him on as he went on to better his own previous best by nearly 9 seconds. Kenya took second and third through Thomas Longosiwa with 12 minutes 56.16 seconds and Caleb Mwangangi with 12.59.17 seconds. The men's 100 meters was a slow affair as winner Nesta Carter of Jamaica was the only sprinter to finish in under 10 seconds. The Jamaican clocked 9.96 to beat Keston Bledman of Trinidad and Tobago, who finished in 10.09 seconds. Britain's Chijindu Uja was third in 10.10.
For a man who began running 5,000 meters competitively just a few months ago, Kenya's Caleb Mwangangi Ndiku is having a stellar season. The former 1,500-meter junior world champion has won 3 major titles: the 3,000 meters world indoor title and 5,000-meter titles in the Commonwealth and African Championships.
The previous years, I was a 1,500-meter runner, but by the time I was doing 1,500 meters, I had already prepared for 5. So most of my workouts were almost 5K to build the endurance. As you know that I won the World Cross Country 2010. So I started build up so highly by the end of last year. When I decided to do 3K in all indoors, I was more focused on 5K.
At 23, Caleb, who comes from a family with track and field pedigree, is ready to challenge for even bigger titles in the 12-lap race. His next championship is the Intercontinental Cup next month.
It will not be easy, for I'll be having Mofara from Europe and Bernard Agar from States and my fellow Africans. So I cannot say things will be easy, but what I know is that it will be a technical race because it will be a 3K, not 5K anymore, of which I'm always good in 3K, but I'm expecting a lot of challenge from Mofara and Bernard.
In 2014, many athletes are working towards next year's World Championships at the Bird's Nest in Beijing, China. But Ndiku is looking beyond Beijing.
I'm more focused more than Beijing because I had one we call 4-year seasons because I'm more focused on the Olympics. As you know, last time I missed it, so this one I'm eager to be in the team.
Ndiku will continue to train in Finland, where he's been since winning the African title, until the Intercontinental Cup to be held in Marrakesh, Morocco. Celestine Karone, CCTV.
All right, away from the track now. Rugby has been ranked second to football in terms of popularity in Uganda, but a string of poor results has seen interest in the sport decline. Now, the Uganda Rugby Union has partnered with former South African player and head coach of the Toyota Cheetahs, Naka Drotsky, to help revamp the sport as the country sets its sights on getting back to the top. Leon Senyange reports.
Once African champions, Uganda has taken a dramatic fall in the sport of rugby. Still, without a regional title, this team now has to contend with playing in the 3rd division of continental rugby. A recent 34-0 defeat to rivals Kenya could only confound the decline. The local union is now looking to call on the experiences and players from Africa's best rugby playing nation, South Africa.
The new people in charge of Uganda Rugby is really passionate to get it right again and to get them up there where they belong and where they were. We see this as a long-standing relationship, and we will do our best to support them and to give them the necessary knowledge and assistance to be a better team.
Naka is the 3rd South African coach to give a helping hand here. Capped more than 90 times by his country, he says establishing the structures and facilities will see better progress.
We've sat down with all the coaches and the technical guys of Ugandan rugby, and we spoke about every single facet of the game. Tactical kicking, defense, attack, every single aspect of the game we in detail discussed, and I gave them some technical ideas which we do at Super 15 level, and I think it's up to the coaches now to implement those structures within the next few weeks to come.
Despite the string of poor results, young people are still keen to take part in the sport. The country's under-19 team will this month play against Madagascar and Zambia in a regional championship. Uganda has been focusing on improving its game after some less than perfect displays in recent matches. Now with the Africa Under-19 Rugby Championships to be hosted here, these players are confident that Naka could add a touch of class to their style of play. Like their seniors, this junior team also plays at the lowest level. But the focus is being put on developing players for the future.
The national team is fed by new blood. So from under-19, you knock on the door of the national team. So we are going to keep that. We are trying to make sure that people are not lost from schools. You see, that's where we've been having the biggest loophole. You find we have very good players from high school, and then when it comes to senior rugby, they're nowhere to be seen. Yet, that's where we want to tap and hold to them. So we shall give them game time, stick under 19, play as many internationals as possible, play as many local games as possible. Now we are also looking at playing Protector Super Series, Bambuli Super Series as under 19, fielded at under 19. That will be a core Uganda.
While rebuilding may take time, success for this junior side could be the start of a recovery process in what has been an unsuccessful run for local rugby. Leon Senyange, CCTV, Kampala.
You must run hard. Don't pass it.
All right, let's take another quick break here on Match Point, but still ahead.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, punch it! Nice one!
It's bungee jumping time at the famous Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe. Welcome back to Matchpoint. Now, the Republic of Congo's Minister for Spatial Planning and Major Projects, Jean-Jacques Bouya, says the Central African country welcomes Chinese support in the process of rebuilding the country. Various stadiums have already been built in Africa, with the latest coming as China finished the new 7,000-seater stadium in Sibiti, a southern city located nearly 400 kilometers from the capital, Brazzaville. The final of the National Soccer Cup was played in the new stadium a few days ago. The Diable Noir club qualified to represent Congo in next year's CAF Confederation Cup. They beat Club Cara by a 2-0 scoreline.
I live in the capital, Brazzaville, and I'm very pleased to have been able to play in this new stadium. I'm very happy to have won the tournament. I'm proud of my team, and to win in this stadium is quite magic, as we played the first match here. I feel very special tonight. This is a very big step in my career.
We had a great match in a great stadium. This infrastructure is one of the best, and I think China did a lot for us. So right now, Congo is also able to host big international competitions. This is one way to attract the youth so that we can have a strong national team in the next 5 years.
China and Congo's cooperation is very high. Chinese societies had built our new stadium and they did great work. We are looking forward for more infrastructure projects in collaboration with China.
All right, I'm getting vertigo just thinking about this next story. Bungee jumping, a sport where you free fall off a platform with just an elastic cord tied to your feet, can be considered one of the most daring sporting activities. It is one of the biggest draws of the majestic Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe, where an average of 50,000 people make the 111-meter jump from the Victoria Falls Bridge every year.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, punch it!
Bungee jumping traces its origins to the Maori tribesmen of New Zealand, who hundreds of years ago jumped off totem poles, some as high as 30 meters, with one of their legs tied to a vine as an act of bravery to court their wives. But the first version of the heart-stopping sport we now know was done as an April Fool's prank in 1979.
Those guys that did it commercially were 4 Oxford University students that jumped off the Bristol Bridge in the UK and got themselves into all sorts of trouble because they broke all sorts of laws.
It's all legal now and has grown, literally, in leaps and bounds. Brian is a bungee enthusiast with 4 previous jumps under his belt and is about to add Victoria Falls Bridge.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, bungee!
But not everyone here is in it for the thrills.
Often I lose bets, and I lost a bet about a year ago, so this is serious payback.
Thousands jump every year, but lots more are happy to just watch from a safe distance. Among them, a South African international cricketer I met on the day I visited.
For me, I'm holding onto this bridge for dear life. You know, Mark tried his best to call me into jumping here today, but I think my heart was meant to do other things. You know, I can get adrenaline bowling to some of the best batters in the world, but this is definitely not for me.
It looks scary, but there are stringent safety precautions.
Now you're ready to jump. Tell us, how are you feeling right now before you jump off?
Nervous, sir.
You're so nervous, eh?
I'm broken.
But even with all the safety measures and encouragement, it's just too much to take for some.
Sure. And these safety things you're doing, this is normal, standard?
Call it stupidity or bravery. I was determined to go through with it.
In, done.
They say the trick to get over the nerves is not to look down, but just knowing that it's over a 100-meter drop is enough to unnerve you. But as they say, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, bungee. Here goes nothing.
Let's go forward. Once your toes over this, you got this, my man. You got this. You ready? Counting. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, bungee. Nice one.
I can't recall my thoughts as I plunged headfirst towards the mighty Zambezi Gorge. But after a few seconds, it was over, and I lived to tell the story. If bungee jumping is not your cup of tea, variations of it have been spawned, like swinging, which are less hair-raising, but provide an equally enjoyable rush. So there are options here for everyone. Farai Mokutuya, CCTV, Victoria Falls, Zimbabwe.
Well, I, for one, I'm glad to see that Farai is still in one piece. Finally, there is African Champions League action once again this weekend. 2 matches are dead rubbers, but the other 2 will definitely have a part in how the semi-finals pair up later on. The first match doesn't really have any impact on who goes through to the semi-finals. Sudan's Al Hilal met Zamalek earlier today, and Al Hilal went through 2-1 in their fixture. The first of 2 derbies is played tomorrow. Sfaxien and Entente Sportive are in the hunt for top spot in Group B. Sfaxien have the upper hand with a single-point advantage. They have 10 points to their opponents' 9. On Sunday, it's the big one, the Kinshasa Derby. AS Vita take on TP Mazembe. What a campaign these 2 teams have had. They are, of course, both through to the semi-finals of the Champions League. So this match is a formality, but no doubt either side will be playing for top spot and bragging rights in Kinshasa. Finally, also on Sunday, Esperance host Al Ahli Benghazi. Neither side qualified to the next round, so Sunday's fixture is for pride. The owners will be on Benghazi to end their tournament with a win. They've experienced a dream run, having played their home matches in another country, knocking out one of the pre-tournament favorites to beat Al Ahli and going as far as they did. Well, that's it for this edition of Matchpoint. Remember, you can send your feedback to us at matchpoint@cctv.com. You can also visit our Facebook page, CCTV Africa. Also, stay in touch with us on Twitter using the handle @CCTV News Africa. Thanks for watching. Once again, we leave you with the images from the sporting highlights this past week.